So let's get started, guys. Others will find us in the swing of things. If you can have your video on, that would be fantastic, because if you have a video on, we can have a much better interaction and much better meeting, especially on a day like today where it's just a few of us. So if you can have your video on, brilliant. Like I said before, we will be trying to have more of a discussion than a presentation. Obviously, I have a presentation and have slides, but if you have a question, you can interrupt me and ask a question. If you want to add a point on top of, you can also interrupt me and ask a question. And so we'll try and have a really sort of vibrant and dynamic discussion as far as this subject today is concerned. And like I said before, I'm really excited today. The topic of this conversation is something I'm so passionate about, financial freedom. Achieving financial freedom is something that I've been so passionate about of late. I've tried to read a lot about it. I've tried to follow different people that are into the FIRE movement. I don't know whether you've ever heard something called FIRE movement. FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early, which basically is a movement that started in America and is kind of caught up around the globe. Basically, people trying to find ways to break away from the conventional way of thinking. You know, you work throughout your life all the way up till you're 70, or what's the retirement age now? Is it 67, 68? I don't know what it is. You work all the way up there and then you retire at that time. So people are trying to break away from that norm and try to do something different, try to free themselves from that financial burden, if you like, and therefore end up being able to retire much earlier, if you like. So there are lots of these things happening around, and I've become so passionate about that, and I hope I'll try and inspire you in some way with the conversation that we're going to have today. And I'd like to hear your input as well, as far as financial independence or financial freedom is concerned. But if you'd allow me, let me pull up my slides up, and then we'll get started. And then, like I said before, feel free to interrupt and interject and add a point and bring a question, bring a challenge even, and let's have a fantastic discussion. All right. Now let's see if I can find my PowerPoint. Brilliant. Can you guys see that? Can you all see that? Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Yeah. So like I said before, achieving financial freedom, it's something really close to my heart, and like that statement that says the goal isn't more money. The goal is living life on your terms, and I think that sums up everything that I want to talk about today, about living life on your terms. Because the thing is, you may have so much money, but still you may be driven by it. You may be driven, you may end up losing your freedom. You may end up losing you may not end up doing the things you want to do because you're so caught up in your business, so caught up in your work, so caught up in whatever it is that you're trying to achieve and trying to build. And as a result, though you may be so rich in the sense that you have a six-figure income, whatever that is, but then you're still not financially free, because in a way you end up a slave of your own success, if you like. So when we talk about financial freedom, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about living life on your terms. So let me pose that question to you guys right on the onset. When we talk about financial freedom, what do you understand by that? When someone says financial freedom, what do you think that means? I'd like to hear from you guys before I share with you my thoughts. Who wants to go first?
I'd say maybe having making money work for you, okay, instead of just working for getting the money, making the money work for you and for your needs.
Brilliant. Do you want to expand that a bit more, Tom?
Well, it's basically having the freedom to basically get what you want. You know, it's instead of just working 9 to 5 just for the sake of paying the bills, having the flexibility to have more money to play with, basically.
Brilliant, awesome. Anybody else wants to chip in? What do you think financial freedom is? or financial independence. Others call it financial independence. You're on mute, ready.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah. I think it's more to do with establishing a cash flow system whereby you are able to create finances, money coming in without having to do the 9 to 5, 7 days a week or 5 days a week. So that means you've got yourself to a place where your investments are paying off. It could be real estate. It could be a business. Yeah, something like that. So you're not waiting for the salary money to come in, or or your wages. Yeah,
absolutely. And anybody else wants to add on that? Guys, we're trying to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have anything you want to add, you're more than welcome. Just unmute yourself and raise your point up so that we can have a rich discussion. You're both correct in that sense. It's about taking control of the finances, isn't it? It's about you being in control rather than the finances controlling you. It's about you having that passive income, like what you're saying, Randy, being able to create a system that generates cash flow for you in a way, and therefore you don't actually have to actively work. You don't have to actively put time and effort in it for it to give you returns, if you like. So having that ability to hands off, to make money hands off, if you like, passively, is what gives you that freedom, isn't it? So yeah, that's part of it, as we shall see later. And like what Tombi said as well, it's that ability which is the same thing said in a different way, not working for money, but money working for you. Because when you're working for money, it is you have to put your time and energy and expertise to earn, which is what most employments are. Even some businesses, it's still the same thing. Especially if you're self-employed, you still need to put your expertise and your time and your efforts to kind of get a return. That's you working for money. But whilst the reverse is money working for you, in which case you've invested that money in such a way that you don't have to put in the time and the effort per se to get the returns. You could go to sleep and the money will still give you returns. You could go on a 6 months vacation traveling around the world and your money is still compounding for you, that kind of thing. So that's what independence means in a nutshell. Now let's see in more detail what I have on my slides, what financial independence or financial freedom might also mean. Right, let's see. Right, now we're all quite familiar with the concept of retirement. And when we talk of retirement, basically you're saying, I've worked for 60 years, I've worked for 45 years, maybe since I was 20, I've been working full time, I've worked all the way till I'm 65, and now I'm retiring. Basically what you're saying is that at that point, you're stopping to work for money. I mean, you may still continue doing different things. I mean, people retire and take on voluntary work. People retire and start writing books. People retire and do all sorts of things. So it's not like you're stopping working. What you're saying is that you stop working for a paycheck. And why can you afford to do that? Is because somehow you have saved enough, or you've got a pension pot big enough to support your lifestyle after you stop working. Basically, that's what you're saying. And that's what retirement is, and that's the concept we've known for so many years, and that's the sort of thing that we're all kind of going down that path, knowingly or unknowingly, because in a way the system has been set for us to do it that way. But when we talk of financial freedom, it's like the 21st century definition, or the 21st century spin-off of what retirement is. You remember at the very beginning I told you about the FIRE movement, the Financial Independence Retire Early movement, where people are kind of breaking away from the notion of waiting till you're 65 or 70 to retire, or to have created enough passive income to be able to live life on your terms. People look for alternative ways where they can actually achieve that much sooner, if you understand what I mean. So when you talk of financial freedom, you're pretty much talking about the same concept of retirement, only that it's that concept before retirement. So you're doing that much sooner. You know, how can you be able to retire when you're 40? How can you be able to retire when you're 50? How can you be able to retire when you're 60? How can you be able to retire even when you're 60 or 65 or even 70? Because when you talk of financial freedom, some people retire without having the financial freedom. How many times have you heard someone say, I can't afford to retire? Basically what they're saying is, if they retire, then they have to compromise their lifestyle. They can't maintain the quality of life they want or the quality of life they have once they retire. So they say they can't afford to retire. So these two concepts are really interlinked in a way, and I wanted to look at it in that sense. So like we said before, it's about having enough passive income to sustain a desired lifestyle. Okay. So if you have a desired lifestyle that you want, this is the sort of life that I want, you know, this is the kind of family that I want, these are the kind of holidays that I want to go to. Once it gets to a point where you have enough passive income, and I'll explain a bit more what passive income is. Once you have enough passive income to sustain that lifestyle, then you can say that you are financially free. Because if you don't, then it means that to maintain that lifestyle, you actually have to trade off your time or your expertise or anything else to kind of maintain that. And therefore, you're giving away your freedom. Freedom in a sense that you're doing what you must rather than doing what you want. I think Tom said that at the beginning. You know, it's about you doing what you want. You know, so freedom is all about you being able to wake up in the morning and say, this is what I want to do today, without really worrying what financial implications that will have on you. So if you've generated enough passive income, then you'll be able to do that. If you haven't, then you've kind of traded some of that freedom to actually do what you must, go to work or start a business or run a business or whatever it is, trade off your time and your expertise to have an income. I pointed out the issue of control. It's about being in control. You control your finances instead of you being controlled by finances, which is a situation that a lot of us find ourselves in. Yeah, Tombe mentioned this, making life decisions without worrying about the financial impact, because you are prepared. I've bolded and put in caps the word prepared, because that is a key word. When it comes to financial freedom, when it comes to financial discipline, when it comes to financial independence, preparation is key. You know, I always challenge people when we talk about when we talk about retirement. I ask questions like, you know, do you have your retirement plan? And someone looks at me like, are you mad? I'm only 30 years. Well, why should I have a retirement plan? I'm thinking like, exactly. You should have a retirement plan when you're 30, even if you're planning to retire when you're 70, because the earlier you have that sort of plan, the earlier you start your preparation, the better stance you'll have when it comes to that time. And so to be able to make those life decisions without worrying about the financial implication is what financial freedom is all about. Okay, now stages of financial freedom. Before I go to that, anyone wants to come in to add a point, a question, anything at all? Rennie, did you want to say something? I've seen you've unmuted yourself.
No. I think it's all good.
Okay, brilliant. Let me crack on then in that case.
Yes, please, yeah.
Brilliant. Now there are stages of financial freedom. Now, what do I mean by that? Before I just start telling you what those stages are, let me move this. Bear with me, guys. Right, let me put it down there. Yeah, you know, there are different ways you can look at financial freedom. You can look at it as an all or nothing thing, right? Yeah, like you've either achieved financial freedom or not. That's one way of looking at it. But I think it makes more sense to look at it as a spectrum. Look at it as a continuum. you're somewhere in between in that continuum. In that continuum, on one end, you have no financial freedom at all, and on the other hand, you have like the luxurious financial freedom where, like, basically you're making, you know, millions, and you know, you don't have to worry about money at all in your life because you've got more than surplus to buy you the lifestyle of your dreams. So it's like we are all somewhere in between. And so when I talk about stages of financial freedom, these are like stages where in your financial journey you might be traveling, and I think it's a very good tool for you to look at it and assess yourself and see where am I in my financial journey when you look at these stages. Now, the first stage is the no freedom, and as that name suggests, basically this is the starting point for most people. Basically, this is, say you finished college, you finished high school, you finished full-time education, you've started your first job, and for most people, that's where they'll be starting, where you are absolutely 100% reliant on what you're getting at the end of the week or the end of the month to be able to finance your lifestyle, so that pay your bills, you know, go out dancing, clubbing, you know, whatever it is that you do when you're 20 or whatever. So usually that's the starting point. You have absolutely no freedom at all. It means that if you stop working, you lose your job, you're down to zero. You can't finance anything. But the sad thing about this stage is that most people spend the rest of their lives in this same stage. Like they start in that stage when they just come into the world of finance, into starting earning, or whether they're involved in business or in employment or whatever it is, they start their first job. But fast forward 20 years later, they've been promoted several times, they're managers, they're directors, and they're still at a no freedom stage, in a sense that they're earning a lot of money, probably they're earning 10 times what they were earning at the beginning, but basically what the money does, it just ends up covering their bills. The only difference is that now they just have more bills and more responsibility, but in a way they still have more freedom, in the sense that if they stop working, they're exactly in the same situation as the person who was starting their first job. I don't know whether that makes sense. So when I'm talking about no freedom, I'm not necessarily talking about the amount of money that you're making. It's just the fact that you're in that kind of a rat race, that kind of a cycle, vicious cycle where money comes in, money goes out, and your net value is zero, basically. Or you're buying things that you think they're assets. We'll talk a bit more about this later, but actually they end up draining more. They end up leaving you more out of pockets at the end of the month than before. So what you thought were assets eventually end up turning out to be liabilities. But we'll talk more about assets and liabilities a bit later. But that's the no freedom stage, where you absolutely have no freedom. So for you to be able to live the life you want, you have to trade off your time and constantly, and you have no wriggle room, if you like. You can't wriggle your way out of that. And that's the time where it becomes very frustrating. You on the outside, people may look at you and they think you're very successful. Oh, this person is doing this sort of job. This person is a doctor. This person owns a business. This person does this, and then they envy you on the outside. But inside, you're really not enjoying your life, because you're really not doing what you want to do. You're really not living the life you would have wanted to do. You're not spending as much time with your family as you'd like. Not because you've chosen to do that, but it's because if you don't do what you're doing and choose to spend time with your family, basically everything around you collapses. You understand? So you absolutely have no freedom. Like I said before, this is what Robert Kiyosaki describes as a rat race. You know, you start earning £100, your expenditures are £100. Your income goes up to £2,000, your expenditures matches, it's £2,000. Your income goes to £10,000. Possibly your expenditures go up to 15,000, more than even your income, and then it becomes a rat race. So you're almost like chasing this never-ending cycle of debt and expenditure. I explained it. Exchanging time for a regular paycheck is another characteristic of people under this place. Expenditure equals or exceeds income. Like I said before, you know, you earn £10,000, your expenditure £10,000. So your net value, 0. Or you earn 10,000, your expenditures, 15,000, net value minus 5,000. So all that ends up locking you into the no freedom stage, where you have to keep doing what you must do to survive, basically. Right, another characteristic in this particular stage, people tend not to have any savings, and they don't have any passive income. So basically, their only source of income is through their own work. So they may have several jobs, you know. So basically, for them to earn more, they need to work more, okay? Or for them to earn more, they have to increase their value, which is a good thing. Like say they have to add a degree, you know, be more valuable, you know, get more training, whatever it is. But they have to increase their personal value to earn more, rather than having another way where money comes in without really depending on what they do or not do. So this is a characteristic: no savings and no passive income. Now let's go to the second stage. Now, second stage is called temporary freedom. Now, in temporary freedom, as the name suggests, the expenditure is usually less than the income. So this is where you have surplus income. So basically, you earn £2,000 a month, but your monthly expenditure is 1,950. So you have a net surplus of £50. Okay. So when you have that surplus, that's when you're coming into the territory of temporary freedom. Now I'll explain how this works in a minute. This is where you can start generating savings. Why? You have that surplus income, so you're not actually spending it, so you are actually saving it, and it can actually accumulate, okay? Or that saving, rather than just keeping it in the bank, you can start investing it for passive income. Now, we'll talk a bit more later about investments, because there is a bit of a confusion sometimes. People, when you talk of investments, they think of business. And when you talk of business, they think of investment. They're two completely different things. And it's very important to understand the difference between those two. But we'll come back later. But suffice to say now that at this stage of temporary freedom, people start thinking about how can I invest my money? You know, how can I make my money work for me? How can I look for savings accounts that pay greater interest? How can I open an ISA account? How can I invest in stocks and shares? You know, that kind of thing. How can I look around in you know, Rennie has got this business. Can I sort of, you know, buy shares in his business, buy stake in that, and invest in it and see whether I will make a return. They start thinking in those terms. Why? Because it all started with the fact that the expenditures were less than income. They were having surplus. They started generating savings, and as a result, now they have money that they can actually invest in a business, their own business, or someone else's business for a passive income. Right. At this stage, the passive income that this person manages to generate is still less than expenditure. So in this case, is as an example, for instance, say someone is working full-time, earns £2,000 a month. He's got some investments. Maybe he's invested in stocks and shares, ISAs, you know, someone else's business, this, that, and the other. And say each month, or maybe into properties, say each month he's making £700 out of those investments, okay? So in total, he's making £2,700. What are his expenditures a month? 1,800. Okay, so he's making more than he's spending. Perfect. So he's having surplus. Perfect. He has passive income. Perfect. But if you look at the passive income alone, it's still less than his expenditures. In this case, his passive income was £700. His expenditures is 1,800. So in a way, this person still can't afford to stop working to maintain his lifestyle, because to maintain his lifestyle, it is 1,800. But he's only making £700 passively. You see, so he's in a stage of temporary freedom. Why do we call it temporary freedom? Because through savings and the passive income that this person makes, say over several years, this person has managed to end up saving £50,000. Say this person has saved £10,000. So he's got £10,000 in saving, and he's also making, on top of that, say £500 each month out of passive income. So all of a sudden, if this person says, right, I'm going to retire now, and I'm going to stop working, guess what's going to happen? he's going to maintain his lifestyle for how long, you think?
Only so much, because
Yeah.
unless that money has been able to give him the money that he needs to spend, then at some
Exactly.
point, you know.
So he'll do that probably for 6 months, isn't it? I mean, I'm just trying to do a roughly quick maths. 1800 times 6, you get what? Blah, 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 12,000, take away that. So it's about 10,000.
1,200
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. So probably it will take him about 6 months, 7 months, probably something like that. And then he'll run out of money. His savings purse will be depleted. And then he'll realize he can't live on 700 that he gets passively. And so his freedom all of a sudden expires in 7 months. That's why we call it temporary freedom. It's temporary because this person can choose to travel for 6 months, for instance. He can say, you know what, I have enough saving here and enough passive income to allow me to stop working and go traveling and do what I want for the next 6 months. Okay, and he may do that happily, and then come back after 6 months and pick up his job and start doing it again, and then start making, saving again and do that. So we call it temporary for that matter. That you can have that freedom, but only for a certain period of time, only for a fixed time, okay, rather than having it indefinitely, which is the next stage that we'll see later. So what does this temporary freedom give you? It's a really good place to be when you have temporary freedom. Why? Because it gives you the ability to make major life changes. I'll give you an example. I've had conversation with a lot of people, and you'd hear someone saying like, I would really like to do such and such work. And then it's like, so what, you ask the person, what's stopping you from doing it? And they go like, it won't pay my bills. So basically what this person is saying is maybe this person is in a certain industry that he's not really interested in, he's not really enjoying it, but for some reason, he's been there long enough and it's giving him enough money to be able to pay the bills. So that can sustain his lifestyle. But then he's thinking, if I'm going to change careers and go into a different career, probably I'll have to start right at the bottom of that other career. Yes, it is something that I love, something that I'm passionate about, something that I would love to do. But then where I'll have to go and start is not going to pay my bills. I'll have to sacrifice a lot of things on my lifestyle to be able to do that. And I can't afford that. So I can't do it. So that's what I want to do, but I can't afford to do it because it won't pay my bills. Okay? Now, if that person had temporary freedom, say if that person had enough saving, say to last him a year, or enough saving to last him 6 months, or had some passive income that could supplement the income, if you like, then it gives this person the flexibility to say, I can change careers, take a pay cut, my passive income can supplement the difference, or I have a savings that could supplement the difference and allow this person to make that lifestyle change, to make that major life change. Why? Because they have this buffer, either in terms of savings or in terms of passive income that allows them to make those kind of changes. So it gives you that flexibility, it gives you that freedom to make those kind of choices. But there are lots of other things. Taking sabbatical, I talked about people wanting to take time off work and go traveling, for instance. Having a baby even. Some people even say, I can't afford a baby. But again, it's the same thing because their life is so fixed. It's almost like everything is net. It's like what comes in is what goes out. And therefore you think, bring the baby as well here. That means I'm going to have less time to work. I have to cut down on my hours, which means less income, but then more expenses. I can't afford this. I'm not going to have a baby. That kind of thing. So when you have this sort of freedom, it allows you to be able to do those kind of things. Also, returning to school. How many times have you heard someone say, or how I wish I would have, gone back to college and add a diploma or get a degree and probably, climb up the career ladder. But I can't afford to do that because if I do that, I put so much responsibility. I can't do that. Basically what this person is saying is that I don't have the temporary freedom. I don't have the savings that can sustain me during that time. Or I don't have the passive income that will keep me sustained while I'm doing my training. You understand? So if you have that kind of passive income, it does give you that freedom and allows you to do different things. Another big one, starting a business. A lot of people can't start a business. Again, because of the same thing, because if you're going to start a business, it means you need to take that time away from work. So you can't do as much overtime at work, for instance, or maybe you only need to work part-time so that you can they have more time in your business. But usually if you start a business, it takes probably a few years at least before you start, making money. And the question is, oh, how am I going to survive, a few years? So it becomes a problem. But if you have savings or if you have passive income, then that allows you to do that, because you can afford to do that because you have something that will supplement your income and allow you to maintain your lifestyle. So temporary freedom, though it's not the destination itself, you want to go further than that, but it's a really good place to be because it allows you, it gives you that flexibility to do different things. And later on, we'll see how you can actually create this temporary freedom for yourself. And it can work wonders for you. Right, now the third stage, as you might guess, is permanent freedom. Now, permanent freedom, as the name suggests, basically, unlike temporary freedom, is where you can retire and say, you know what, I feel like not going to work for the rest of my life. I just want to, go traveling. Or you can turn around and say, you know what, no, I want to start, writing books, just for fun. And if it makes money, great. If it doesn't, I don't care. I enjoy writing books, so I'm going to be writing books. Or you know what, I just want to start, I want to be a pastor for now on. I'm just going to be preaching the gospel. But these days, being a pastor can be a good business. So maybe that's not a great example, but leave that aside. But you understand what I'm saying? All I'm trying to say here is at the stage of permanent freedom is where you are able to make permanent lifestyle choices without worrying ever about what the financial implications of that will be. And how do you attain that? One, you need to have wide range of savings. And I'll explain later when I say wide range of savings. Why am I using savings in plural? And why am I talking about wide range? Because you have different types of savings. We'll see that a bit later. But you need wide range of savings to be able to afford that permanent freedom. In this case, your passive income has to be equal or more than your expenditure. You remember in the temporary freedom, I said your passive income is less than expenditure. In this case, it has to match your expenditure, or it has to be more than your expenditure. Then in this case, you can live off it basically and not do any active work and still make your bills and still maintain your lifestyle. Okay, so that's what buys you permanent freedom basically. So in that case, like I said before, you become able to retire and maintain the same lifestyle that you have or that you aspire. You are free to pursue your passion and be able to fund it, because that's the thing. Pursuing a passion is one thing, being able to fund that passion, that's where the challenge is. So when you talk about permanent freedom, you're talking about that freedom to be able to pursue your passion, to do what you want and be able to fund it, because your passive income exceeds your expenditures. Now, this is the stage I call the stage of fulfillment, a stage where you're living life on your terms. The decisions that you're making, the lifestyle choices that you make, the design of your life and everything is not made out of necessity. You're not making them because the financial constraints and the financial needs around you are dictating that you have to make them, but you're making them because you want to make them, because they are the things you want, and as a result, they are the things that bring fulfillment to you. Because usually the things that tend not to bring fulfillment are the things that you feel that you have to do. You're doing it because you have to, not because you want to. You understand? That's the difference. Fulfillment comes when you do things because you want to, while resentment comes when you're doing things because you have to, if that makes sense. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said at the very beginning, this is a continuum. It's a spectrum. We are all somewhere in between. We're all in that journey somewhere between. So though we're all aspiring to get to that permanent freedom, but at one stage or another in our lives, we are always somewhere in the middle, somewhere in between. And therefore, it's not an all or nothing business. It's not a question of looking at this and thinking like, I haven't achieved this. I don't think I'll ever achieve this in my life. So I'm doomed. My life is a mess. No, that's not the point here. The point is that we're all aspiring to that, but then we're all in a journey trying to get to that. So there is a lot of not gray area, but there is a lot of middle ground, if you like. Like for instance, you may kind of have freedom in certain areas, or you may achieve freedom in certain. Let me give you an example. The practical application of what I've just told you here. Maybe this might help. A couple of years back, I'll give my own personal example. A couple of years back, when we were planning to relocate back to the UK, because we lived in Tanzania for a couple of years. When we were planning to relocate back to the UK, one of the things that was really important to us was the fact that right now, if we're going to relocate, then we need a plan as to what sort of lifestyle we want when we go back, and how are we going to fund that lifestyle. Now, when I'm talking about lifestyle, it includes what sort of work do you want to do, what sort of things do you want to do, if you want to run a business, what kind of business do you want to do, and whatnot and whatnot. So among other things was that if we are to return, then one of the things that we need to have is to have enough savings to sustain us when we return, to be able to create the lifestyle that we want. This is what I mean, that if I want to start a business, then I have to gauge how long will that business take before it can start supporting me. That's the first question. Or if I'm going to start looking for work, I have to give myself time and say, how long do I need, realistically, based on the UK job market, for me to find work, if you know what I mean, and for that work to be able to pay me substantially, to be able to sustain the life that I want. So we did all those maths. It sounds very complicated, but it wasn't very complicated maths. So we came up with figures that this is the amount of money that we'll need to have as savings to be able to, say, live off it for 6 months and maintain the lifestyle we want, because according to our calculations, we thought that after 6 months, then whatever business that we'll be doing and whatever employment that we might take would be able to sustain the life that we want. So what we ended up doing is to have that saving. Now, what that bought us is that when we came back to the UK, we were not desperate to do whatever comes our way. For instance, my plan was not to go back to employment. My plan was to start a business. So I was not under stress to find any work or to do anything different from what I had planned, because I knew that we had enough to sustain us for 6 months. So in our minds, it was like, if it gets to 6 months and plans don't seem to work the way we intended, then we can start looking for alternative plans. Like, say, maybe we might need to change the plan, look for work, or do this, or do the other. But at least it bought us that time where you can focus on what you want to do, because you've kind of prepared. You remember that word I said before, preparation? We've prepared ourselves, and that has bought us temporary freedom, in our case, 6 months, to be able to do what we want to do, and then see what happens after that. So we didn't have the permanent freedom, but it brought us temporary freedom. So when we talk about these elements of financial freedom, you can chop and mix and match in that sense, that it could apply in one area, not necessarily in another. So when I'm saying that you have financial freedom, it may not necessarily apply in every aspect of your life, but you can apply it in different areas and make it work for you, if you know what I mean. So yeah. Let's carry on. Now, before we go to the next section, I want to allow a bit of discussion there. So I'll allow people to kind of come in. If you have a question, you want to add on to what I've been saying, unmute yourself and share. You're welcome.
I mean, I think I'll go first. There's a little bit, there's so much to take in on that. But on the last bit where we're talking about achieving a financial freedom, I think, because we've got the pointers, I think we should discuss more on things that, I mean, how do you get to that sort of position? You know, and I think this is where you have to have an idea and create sort of like some sorts of, say, cash flow, you know, let's say from, you know, I've forgotten the terms, that, you know, the stages, but let's say from the second stage where you're trying to start to grow, and that could be sort of in the terms of investment, which could be sort of like you could get into shares, especially shares are good because of things like long term. There is and then maybe real estate, in the essence that at least you've got that sort of cash flow. Because I think I was listening to someone and they said, especially back in Africa, whereby what's happening right now is things are changing now, but you find that there's a lot of people who are asset rich and cash poor, and hence you find that a lot of us love to send. Asset rich cash poor, yeah, and then we find that that's why a lot of us have to send money home. But then you find out the people who are sending money home, like our parents, they have houses they're living in. They have a little farm where they can do a little bit of cultivating and stuff like that. But then the fact is, they don't have money. So how do you create that sort of lifestyle where you can have that sort of cash flow, yeah, which can enable your lifestyle to live? Say, I'll give a hypothetical example. Say you go to a place where you've finished paying not even paying mortgage. Say you bought a house to rent. You've been able to save money and bought a house to rent. So that means you pay the bank its interest, and from that you're making, let's say, £500 a house. 3 houses, £1,500. Let's say 4 houses, that's $2,000, and your expense is, £1,800 a month. So at least even in like 30, 40 years, you're still making that sort of money coming in. I think that's where we should go, or rather aim to get to be able to attain that sort of financial freedom and independence, where the money can just be coming in and we spend and that. Yeah. So in a nutshell.
Absolutely, Randy. Thank you so much for that contribution. Yeah, eventually that's what we have. That's at the end of this conversation, when we come out of here, that's why I want you to start thinking, how can I create that cash flow? How can I create that passive income? How can I make money work for me rather than me keeping working for money? Because eventually, if you keep doing that, like I said before, you stay on that rat race, and it's a never-ending race. You just end up going from like that and come to retirement when you're really tired. You go bang, and your lifestyle has to kind of drop with you, because in a way, income, you can't work as hard as you could when you were 30 years old. So yeah, absolutely. Starting to think outside the box. How can I make money work for me? How can I make sure that I'm buying assets? There's something you said there when they have assets, and what's that you said? They asset rich and cash poor.
Asset rich and cash poor, yeah.
There are so many things that people end up buying, and they're saying they're assets, but actually when you look in detail, they're not actually assets, they're liabilities. Because if anything, they end up spending more money on those things.
Yeah. and I think that's the other thing which I think we need to sort of brainstorm more about it, because there is the idea and the fantasy that's been sold that having a house is an asset, but then again it becomes a liability, because then you've got to take care of the repairs, you've got to take care of the gas. If you want to do sort of works outside and everything, somebody's got to pay for it. And I think at some point, if the house starts costing you more money than if you would just pay rent, but how can you reverse that asset to be a point where that house can be how do you reverse it in a way that it can be an asset and not a liability? So.
Absolutely, that is a really good discussion. Hold that thought, Randy, because we will come to that. When we come to I think the point of investment, when we talk about investment, it might not be today, it might be another day, but when it comes to the point of talking about investments, I think we'll have more time talking about the difference between assets and liabilities, because a lot of people get that completely wrong. But I think if we can nail that definition right, I think it can be very helpful to us, because like you're saying, you can't conclude one way or another, because when it comes to properties, houses can be assets, but they can also be liabilities. so how can you make it an asset for you is the real question. And once you know the difference, then you can kind of navigate that space better, because a lot of people turn around and say, oh, houses are always assets, but then they end up losing a lot of money. Others say, oh, houses are liabilities, but then people are making money off houses. So once we get these definitions right, and I think that will help us. When we get to the point of investment, I think we'll talk more about that. Any other contribution, guys?
Hello, I have a question myself, but I can't show myself on the video. Sorry. Yeah.
It's
Is
okay.
it okay if I?
It's okay, Monica. It's okay, Mama Boke. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. We're more than happy to have you on board.
I'm so happy because I joined the stage, I think, where it was my area which I needed badly on the freedom stages of freedom.
Yeah.
There are some people that are discouraging so much when they talk about age limitation, to say, oh, when someone is above 40, just know that you never make it because you're supposed to be rich or this and that on certain age. Is it true that when you reach certain age, you can be worried about your life to be the way you want, meaning that you can have freedom financially? Because if you are strong, myself, the way I believe, the age doesn't matter, because I read so many people who were successful later on, where after trying so many times. And the second question is, after asking the age limit, the second question is, for example, if I want to go like us who are from Africa, and we know that there is now less cash, which means to find someone has money is really, really hard, because we know from the way they ask the relatives or friends, they ask from you. Some people can ask you £5, £10. That's where it shows that there is no cash flow. There is no one who can think of how to get the cash. Most of people, they're having a lot of fixed assets, but they don't have cash. So for example, if you say, okay, I'm retiring, but I want to stay in the country like that. So in order to survive, do you need a lot of cash, or do you need, what do you need most in order to be successful in the country like that, instead of saying, okay, me, I cannot go back because of this and that. But I feel like there is a way out to go and leave the place where they're having less cash and they're having a lot of assets. And also you can think of saying, okay, I'll buy maybe a lot of houses, but you buy, you don't know whether you'll be able to sell later or the value will appreciate. So those are my questions. I need to get ideas, or maybe, yeah.
Okay, I'll try and answer those questions, and then I'll allow someone else to chip in as well. If I forget anything, you can remind me. Okay, I'll start with the second question. Since it's the last one, I remember it more. Basically, I want to point out the difference between cash and cash flow, first and foremost. It's not the matter of you having a lot of money, that, how much money do I have? I have £100,000. Yes, now I can go home and retire. Because if that's the only thing you're looking at, then that's just a finite instrument. It's like savings, which means basically it's going to run out at some point, depending on your lifestyle. And if you're not careful, as we'll see later about Parkinson's law, the more money you have, the quicker it's going to run out. But we'll talk about that a bit later. The main thing we're talking about here is cash flow, which means is you having a source of income, a passive source of income. Passive in the sense that you don't have to work for it. As a person who is retired, for instance, things like pension, for instance, or dividends from your investments in other companies, or rental portfolio, say from your properties, as an example. Things like that, things that will generate income for you on a regular basis without you necessarily working for it. That's what we're talking about. So it may be things like, say, you may say, right, I've been working in the UK for so many years. I had, I've been paying towards my private pension. I have my state pension, which is something also people need to start considering. Do you have a state pension? Are you on track to getting full benefits of the state pension? Because they have things they call qualifying years, and you have to have so many of those years to get the full benefits of the state pension. Do you know whether you qualify for all those years and those kind of things? So you want to know things like that, whether you have a state pension. in this country, because you should be entitled to it because you're paying NI towards it. Do you have a private pension? Are you paying towards it? Do you know how much it will be what's your projected income? Because most of the private pensions now, they have an app that has like a calculator that can extrapolate for you and tell you that based on your contributions now, this is what you'll be earning once you retire each month or something like that. So you can actually know and start organizing to know what sort of income will I be having passively once I retire, once I go back home, and then start making decisions now, whenever that now means, on how you're going to do that. Or so that might mean either trying to invest more, or altering your lifestyle such that you can match what income you'll end up having. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, then what ends up happening is like what you're saying, Mom. You may go there with a lump sum of money, and before you know it, that runs out really quickly, and you end up broke. I know so many pensioners that, especially back home in Tanzania, they get to pension age, they're so excited. Why are they so excited? Because they get this huge lump sum when they retire. You know, that parachute sum. Lots of money, and all of a sudden, all their dreams, they want to fulfill all their dreams with that lump sum, okay? And as a result, they realize that was a fairy tale. It doesn't work. Very quickly, that money runs out, and they end up broke. And sometimes they end up in worse situations than before because they've taken up so much responsibility financially because they thought they had so much money, and they end up in more trouble. So lump sum is not the answer here. It's the cash flow, something that you can almost like have on the long term. Now, back to your first question. If I would remember it correctly, the question of time, whether age matters. Now, my answer is this: age does matter, and I'm so disappointed that I didn't do enough promotion. Maybe I didn't do enough publicizing to get enough young people, because I would have loved to have lots of youngsters here, teenagers even, you know, people in the age of 18, 19, 20, people in university, people just starting work, because the sooner they can start managing their finances well, the better it is. So does age matter? It does, because if you can start the financial journey earlier, then you're in a better place. But it also doesn't matter in a sense that the tools that we're sharing here, the things that we're talking about, we're not talking about being millionaires. That's not what we're talking about. Not necessarily. I mean, if you apply these tools we're talking about from the age of 30 or from the age of 20, then yes, you can end up being a millionaire by the age of 50. But that's not the point. The point is that, like I said before, like the example I gave for myself, is that if you use these tools, like if you learn to generate, say, temporary freedom, you learn to save, you learn to start investing, you learn to start looking at positive cash flow, you start understanding the difference between asset and liability, and know that I can spend my money wisely on buying assets that are going to generate positive cash flow rather than just adding more liabilities and more expenses to myself. Once you apply these principles, they can help you financially, whatever age you are. You know, even if you're already a pensioner, you can be a pensioner, you're not working, and you can still come to a seminar like this, hear these principles, and they can still, make a big difference, a massive difference in your finances, because they apply throughout. But the truth of the matter is, because when it comes to finances, it's a long game. You know, money matters. The money game is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You know, and a lot of the time we make a big mistake thinking that the money game is a sprint, and we make a lot of bad financial decisions thinking it's a sprint. But actually, it's the marathon. It's all about the distance, how far that your money will take you, rather than how much you can make so quickly. You know, they get rich quick scheme, and that's why a lot of people end up being conned with get rich quick schemes. You know, lots of Ponzi's out there because of that, because people think it's a sprint rather than a marathon. So I don't know whether I've confused even more, Mama, by saying it is, age does matter, but at the same time it doesn't, because it depends on how you look at it. I don't know if there is anybody who wants to add on that.
That was very good. That was very good, Charles, because I take on board on the age doesn't matter, because I will start applying what I'm learning now.
Yeah.
And also to help the young ones, that they shouldn't waste time and come to be like us who have wasted a lot of time because we didn't have knowledge like now, which we are having knowledge. And I urge you, Charles, if you can help more, because I attended just a short course about they were talking about the NI, the contribution of these pensions and whatever. It's like we are given short time. Most of people are confused. So if you get time in future, maybe it will be a good help for people to know how to maybe to go in these pensions and what do you expect to get, how it's going to help you, because there are some people, I think they don't know. Even myself, I don't know much about pensions. And I came to know about these state pensions just after attending the course. But I think we need to know more and more.
Absolutely.
In order to help us to save here. Thank you so much. I'm so satisfied because of the cash flow and whatever the second one also. I'm really satisfied. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Can I pour a little bit of water into the fire?
Yeah. Go on, Rennie. That's what we're here.
It's a little bit of. I like sometimes to play the devil's advocate, and I think you'll bear with me here.
Go for it.
Personally, I'm not a big believer in pensions. And I think this is why I really prefer the idea of cash flow, because if you rely on pensions, I mean, if you look today, the thing is, the reason pension was first brought up, let's say a house, a mortgage. Mortgage was a French term for until death, and at the time people died a little bit. People died a little bit earlier. So the thing is, when the banks were giving these mortgages, they knew you couldn't get to that point where you finish your mortgage and you're living a good life, you're trying to enjoy it. So the banks were okay with it, right? So, I mean, then you bring today, talk about pension, right? When you look around, a lot of pensioners are poor. The money that you invest into the state, you live poor. If you compare, in comparison, if you invested money in shares, and invested money into a pension, because like say you put money in your bank today, the interest the money earns at the bank is very minute. So in your head, it sort of gives you that false financial hope that, oh, I will rely on my pension. A lot of people do that. And then I remember one time when I was working with people that are in difficulties, and one of the ladies was going to die, and he said, you know what, actually, one of the guys that we are supporting, he earns more pension than I will be making when I retire. So in that small statement, it said that although she'd worked for over 20 years of her life, her pension was still not going to be enough for her. So now this is where, Monica, this is where the important thing comes. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And for me, age never matters. I mean, the likes of the KFC guy, I mean, was he 70 when he made it? In fact, the third stage of financial freedom, which Charles was talking about.
He was definitely retired.
Yeah, the third stage where Charles was talking about. Most of the time when we acquire that, a lot of people are in their 50s, 60s. Yeah, the first stage where I don't know this. I need to go back and have a look at the stages. But the first stage,
the no freedom.
Really good. That's the first stage where we are supposed to have that knowledge. And I'm thankfully say for us to introduce the young kids. But the thing is, that's the time where a lot of people can make money and can be able to understand their finances and all that. But a lot of the youngsters at that point, they spend so much time on their sexual energy, chasing girls chasing boys and all that stuff. So by the time you get to 40, they say life begins at 40. So the 30s have given you the experience you want. Now the 40s is when, okay, fine. So where do I start now? I've got all the experience. I've failed a lot. And I think now is when I want to start making things work, So, and then you start to play the game. And now the thing is, the fact that you're part of this class means there's something which you want to know. And once you've got that inquisitive and then you take the tools. Well, it doesn't matter how old, I don't know what's your profession today, but we all came here. When God created us, he gave all of us a talent. He gave all of us something, a fruit, for us to share into the world. So if we take that and use it to our optimally best, you know, we can be able to use that to create that financial freedom, that passive income. You just have to discover it. Some discover it too early, some discover it a little bit too late. But then the thing is, the fact is, you've got to start. Once you start the journey, you will realize age doesn't matter, because in your retirement age or wherever, you should be able to enjoy the life that you want. And I think you mentioned something about Africa. A lot of us have got that false hope that we can invest in Africa. We have a Swahili saying which says, "The stick from far will not kill the snake." You have to be near it. My always encouragement is, if we can try and invest where we can monitor our investments, that could be a small business from where you are from home and stuff like that. You know, it also could be. All right, Charles, your screen is confusing me.
No, carry on.
Yeah.
The reason I brought it up, because what you've been saying falls perfectly to the next section that we were going to talk about. Carry on.
I know. I was just winding down, but basically, the whole thing about it is, you just have to start. Make the first step. The first step is here. You're in the first step. You're trying to listen and understand. Okay, fine. The things that I don't know. The Bible says we die because people perish because they lack knowledge.
Lack of knowledge, yeah.
Lack of knowledge, yeah. So the thing is, knowledge is the first. So once you've got the knowledge, you've got the tools, and you're working on the tools, then, you know, voila, life will happen at some point. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Freddie. That's why I like this group. You know, you get all sorts of different varying ideas. Right. Let me conclude it this way. And I hope even Rennie will agree with me on that one, that pensions, whether it's your cup of tea or not, it does generate passive income, in a sense that it's what will give you income when you're not working, if you've been employed for so many years. That's for state pension, obviously. For private pension, that's if you've been contributing. If you haven't been contributing, obviously you get nothing. But yeah, it is passive in a sense that that money has been invested elsewhere. Someone else is making that money work for you, and you're getting whatever that token is every month. Or in the case of state pension, it's the government investing that money on your behalf and giving you whatever amount the members of parliament have decided on that particular year. So in a way, you're under the mercy. So, but pension is just one-off. The point of this conversation is, you have to think of all these different things, and you have to really actively engage with it and think, right, how can I create enough of this passive income to be able to live the life I want? That's at the end of the day, that's the $1 million question. Now, if that means you putting more towards pension, then that's what you do. If that means you investing more in stocks and shares, that's what you do. If it's you building more small affordable housing in the middle of whatever country you're from, and rent them, and that's what will give you money, and you think it's a good investment, then that's what you do. But the point is, you need to be able to have the ability to generate that passive cash flow. Now, allow me to talk a little bit about business and finance, because it ties in really well with what we've been talking, and it's very important to make this distinction, because so many times we've been confusing what is business, what is finance. When you talk about business, people think you're talking about finance. When you talk about finance, people think you're talking about business. Now, in a nutshell, why is this not working? Oh, here we go. Now, when we talk of financial freedom, I'll repeat this statement again. I'm not talking about you becoming a millionaire, okay? Like what Rennie was saying earlier. I mean, you can be a millionaire at any age. You can start a business at any age. You may be 70 and start a business. You may be 20 and start a business. You know, people are teenagers, are children even, and they start businesses and they make millions. You can start a business at any point, and it can boom. It can be very successful. You can make a lot of money out of it. Now, that is business. It means you've created a system, And that system has been generating cash flow for you. It's a system that you own, and it's a business. It's making money for you. More often than not, when you're developing that business, you're actually putting your time and your energy in it, and probably your expertise as well. And you have to manage it, you have to grow it, you have to nurture it. It's your baby. It's what you do. That's what you do. And usually it takes time. But it may be 2 years, it may be 6 months, it may be 5 years, it may be 10 years. But eventually it becomes something big, something beyond yourself. It creates a lot of money, a lot of employment. It makes you money. That is business. When we talk of finance, it's like something slightly different. When we talk of finance, we're not talking about you making money. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, what do you do with the money you've already made? I don't know whether you understand the difference. It's like, say you've gone to work, you've earned your paycheck at the end of the month. It comes home to you. You have that paycheck. You have £2,000. What do you do with that money? That's where the finance bit comes in. The business bit has ended at the point where you've made money. It's like I went to work, I made money. I sold some mangoes, I made money. That's the business. You've created a system where you can buy mangoes one place at a cheaper price, you sell them somewhere else at a more for more money, you make profit. That's business. So you've made the profit. The profit has come to your hands. Now finance starts. What do I do with this money that I've made? You understand the difference? Now, what I'm saying is that when we talk about financial freedom, now this is also answering what Mama Boki was asking earlier. Anybody can achieve financial freedom, regardless of your age, regardless of how much you earn. So when we talk about you achieving financial freedom, I'm not talking about people now starting earning 6-figure salaries or 7-figure salaries. I'm not talking about people creating multi-million-dollar businesses even. I'm not even talking about people starting a business. You will not even ever start a business and still achieve financial freedom. Now that's really important to understand, because not everyone can start a business. Why am I saying not everyone can start a business? Because we're not all entrepreneurs. That's also another myth that people give themselves, that they think that everyone can be an entrepreneur. No, not everyone can be an entrepreneur. There are people that cannot be entrepreneurs. There are people that if they come to me, I'll tell them, you know what? Don't you ever worry about being an entrepreneur, because you'll be the worst guy. Just focus on what you're good at, do it. Don't worry about starting a business, but you can still be financially free if you can follow the principles of finance. It means that even if you're working for an employer, if the money that you make, if you're spending it wisely, if you're managing it wisely, and we will see those managements later, you can still be financially free. And that's the freedom that I'm talking about. It's not just about you making more money and becoming a millionaire. Yes, if you can be a millionaire, great. If you're not going to be a millionaire, it doesn't mean that you cannot be financially free. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like I said, it's not all about increasing your income. Increasing your income is very important, yes, but it's not all about that. And we'll see why I'm saying that in a nutshell. Like I said, financial freedom is more dependent on the level of financial management that you have, how well you can manage the money that you have. We all know this guy, don't we? Who doesn't know this guy? Raise your hand if you've never seen this face before. Wow, Tombe. Yeah. Are you taking a mickey now? Right, this is Iron Mike Tyson, right? Everybody knows Mike Tyson, right? This guy was the greatest, and the fiercest. He was like the greatest fighter of his time, of his generation, probably of all time. I mean, if you ask me, I think he was the greatest of all time. Others will argue some Muhammad Ali. Others might argue someone else. I don't know. But in my opinion, I think he was the greatest. And at the pinnacle of his career, he made so much money. I mean, this guy was mentored. This guy would go into a fight and make millions in each fight, and not just fights, sponsorships, endorsements, this, that, and the other. In a span of like 10 years of his career, he made lots of money. You know what I mean? Made 400 million in boxing, right? And which is ridiculous. But then what happened to him? He filed for bankruptcy in 2003. Now, just so you have an idea, the time scale here. he became the heavyweight champion for the first time, I think in 1989, was it, if I'm correct? 88 or 89, I'm not sure. So let's start from there. He's become the world champion for the first time in 89. 2003 is what, 14 years later? Something like that. 14 years later, after making 400 million during that time, he files for bankruptcy with a debt of 23 million. Okay, now you can ask yourself, how does someone who's made 400 million end up bankrupt in 14 years with a debt? Now, this is the point I was making before, that it's, when we talk of financial freedom, we're not just talking about making money, because sometimes we may focus too much, and unfortunately, when we talk about money and talking about wealth and talking about wealth generation, so many times we have focused too much on making more money, making so much money. But then if we don't pay enough attention on what we do with the money that we're making, then it becomes a vicious cycle. You're making money one end and it all goes out the other. You know, or you're making lots of money on this end and you're racking up a lot of debt, which ends up bankrupting you after so many years. Or your lifestyle goes up, matches your income, or even more, it exceeds it. Before you know it, you can't sustain that lifestyle, and all goes boom. You know, or as in the case of him, obviously, a lifespan of a boxer is not that long. You know, you can only box for about what, 10 years, 15 years if you're very fit. You know, between 20 years and 35. After that, that's it, man. If you haven't accumulated enough to that point, you're done. So he didn't think beyond that point. What is he gonna do after 35 years? When he gets to 35, when he gets to 40, when he retires from boxing? You understand? So he didn't have that plan in place. So financial freedom is not just about you making money. For instance, if I ask you a direct question, do you think this guy attained financial freedom? As in permanent financial freedom? I don't think he did. Do you think the 400 million he made while boxing could have bought him permanent financial freedom? I think the answer is absolutely yes. So that's the difference. There is something that he didn't do right that ended up, you know, because the truth of the matter is, he couldn't have continued boxing for the rest of his life. At some point, you know, his career would have ended. I mean, obviously, he made lots of poor lifestyle choices that kind of crippled his career anyway. But even with that, if you've made 400 million and you end up losing it within 10 years, that shows that there is a different way. So that I'm telling you this just to point the fact that we need to think beyond just making money. Okay, we need to think of how we manage, how we treat, how we manage the money that we've already made, because that is what's going to make the difference between becoming financially free or ending up like most people do. So let's look at some few definitions here. So I have a very simple definition of business. Now don't go on Google or on Wikipedia and try and look for this definition, because you might find a completely different definition. But I've simplified it to this. Business is just how you make your money. Okay, so your business is how you make your money. So whether if you're working for an employer, that's your business. If you're running your own business, that's your business. If you're self-employed, that's your business. If you're running a multi-million dollar corporation, you're a CEO of a certain company and you own it, that's your business. Okay, so whatever makes you money, that's your business. How you make your money, that's your business. When what you do, your expertise, your time, you've created this nice, you know, stream of income, active income, something you've done to create it. That's what business is. Finance, on the other hand, like I said before, it's how you manage your money. You know, you've made your money. Now, how you manage what you've already made is what finance is all about, like I explained before. So it's things like, do you save? Do you invest? Do you have a budget on how you spend? How do you spend your money? Are you in debt? How do you manage your debt? You know, all that, you know, that's what finance is. You know, you're giving. You know, giving, for instance, because giving is really a big part of finance. You know, I think it's probably when you talk about spending, giving is probably something you need to be thinking of first. So how do you give? Do you just give haphazardly? Do you plan your giving? You know, all those things. That all falls under the umbrella of finance. And if we can master that well, then we're in a really good stand on our road to financial freedom. So wealth generation isn't just about making money. It is just as much about how you treat the money. Right. Robert Kiyosaki said this: wealth is measured in time, not dollars. Okay. So I'll go back to the example of Mike Tyson. A better measure of his wealth is not how much he made over that time. It's how long that sustained his lifestyle after his career ended. And clearly it wasn't much time. so someone could have made $400 million and ended up broke in 3 months or 6 months, just as anybody else, really. You know, if I pose a question here to us, how long can your money last you? How long can your savings last you? You know, yeah, people come up with different numbers. You know, someone might say a month, someone might say 6 months, someone might say a year, someone might say, well, a week. You know what I mean? So it's true measure of wealth is how long it lasts, how long you can maintain your lifestyle with it. That's the best way to measure one's wealth, because someone might have a lot of money, but if it's leaking everywhere and it can only sustain that lifestyle for a month, that truly is not true. He may be rich, but he's not wealthy. So actually, let me pose that question for you. How long can you sustain your lifestyle if you stop working today? Okay, it's a rhetorical question. I don't want you to tell me your answer, but I just want you to reflect on that for a minute. Based on your savings, based on your passive income. If today you say, you know what, I'm not going to work, I'm just going to stay home. Whether you're running your own business, you're saying, no, I'm not going to my business. You know, I'm not going to run my business. I'm going to run my business down to the ground. So yeah, gone. I'm not running my business anymore. I just don't want to work. I'm retiring today. How long can you sustain your lifestyle, your current lifestyle, you know, your responsibility, your bills as it is now? How long can you sustain that? You know, and have that figure in your mind. Okay. So that the longer you can sustain it, the wealthier you are, if you like. So I said this statement earlier on when I was answering someone else's question, I think, that the money game is not a sprint, but a marathon. It's not how fast, but how far you can run that matters most. So the speed matters, yes, it's important, but when you're talking about a marathon, it's not about the speed. It's how well you can pace yourself. You know, if you're doing 100 meters, you know, a good example is the Olympics, which are happening right now. In a couple of weeks, we'll have the sprinters coming on the scene as well, because they usually do at the very end. When you look at the sprinters, what do? You know, they're waiting for that thing to go. When it goes, what happens? They just go. It's almost like you go as fast as you can from the word go. It's almost like it's on from the beginning. But what about those who do marathon? When it goes, because it also goes as well. What happens? You know, it's almost like a stroll in the park, isn't it? They just start really slowly. You know, it's almost like they're, you know, actually, in fact, someone might even, you know, delay doing it. I've seen it a few times. You know, the gun goes and someone is still tying his shoes. Yeah, because it's almost like people know that, you know, I have so much time to catch up. I mean, I'm not talking about 100 meters. I'm talking about 23 miles. You know, something that's going to take, you know, over 3 hours even. So the money game is also this. We need to change our mindset and start looking at the money game that way. Like, it's about a marathon. It's about thinking long term. It's about thinking how can I get to the end. How can I make my money last the most? It's not so much about how can I make so much money now, because you might make so much money now and then Parkinson's law kicks in and you end up losing it all just as quickly as you made it. You know what I mean? And then what? You know, people might look at you and say, "Oh, that guy is, you know, he's so rich. That guy has done great business." But then you haven't really mastered the power of wealth generation because you're losing it as quickly as you're making it. So think marathon instead of a sprint. Right. I probably won't go into statistics today. So let me allow some conversation now as we wind up. And then tomorrow, not tomorrow, next time, in 2 weeks' time, we'll go into statistics and then we'll look into the individual areas of creating I call it the road to financial freedom, creating financial freedom. So we'll talk about things about savings, we'll talk about investment, we'll talk about spending. Spending is really important to talk about. We'll talk about budgeting. That's a big one. We'll talk about debt management. Also very important, something that we don't often talk about. We'll also talk about insurances. Insurances are very important as well. And probably other things that might come in that conversation. Having said that, let me stop sharing and we can have a bit of a discussion to end our conversation today. How is everybody doing? You all good? All still alive?
It was great. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from you now. Who wants to go first?
No, I was just thinking, Charles. I think it was Rennie. He was saying he doesn't like about patience, but I'm just trying to think, you know, for a person who is over 45 maybe, and maybe your strength is gone, you don't have that strength maybe to, or you don't have a knowledge on invest on stock and stuff. For me, I will still encourage people to put money for their passion in passion, yeah. And I asked someone, I called someone some days ago, and he was suggesting instead of you having private, you should ask your employer, then you pay more money. It's cheaper that way than go to the private. For your, I mean, how do you call it again? This English now.
Private pension.
Pension, yes, pension, yeah. So for me, yeah, Rennie is fine. Is what he's saying. I'm agreeing with him. But like Mama Boke said, you know, the energy is gone now. She needs something which is easier for her than running up and down too much for the plan for a patient in the future. So I think she should continue to go for that. But instead of her putting money in workplace and the private, you can ask the employer to add more money for a patient in the same place. I think it's cheaper that way than go to private. And can still get more money. I think I didn't go deep on researching that one, but that's the small bit I went through it. Yeah. Or if she want to go Africa. Yeah, that one I think I'll talk with Mama. Okay, I'll call you about that one because I'm still researching for some things on how to invest back home if you're planning to go back home. Yeah.
May I add a little bit on that bit of private pension, Salome? I mentioned about state pension. Now, when I talked about state pension, I was specifically talking about the one covered by the NI. You're not actually paying towards. It's not the one that gets deducted on your salary. No, I'm talking about the NI. You know, so it goes from your national insurance contributions basically, and that's the one that I said you have to look into it and see whether you've racked enough qualifying years to get the full sum of that. Which at the moment I think it's is it £165 per week or something like that? I don't know.
Around there. Yeah.
Around 165 per week, which works at about 650 per month. So that's state pension. Now that's different. The private pension I'm talking about is not necessarily what you do yourself, as in you've got your own company that you're investing in as a private pension. That's what I mean. You might still be doing it with your employer, but it is not the one that comes through your NI. It is something that you're contributing privately, contributing privately in the sense that it gets deducted off your salary. So say you understand, you maybe 5% of your salary goes in, and at the moment it is mandatory. By the way, I think from last year the government made it mandatory for all employees to have to be enrolled in a pension. If they were not. So I'm calling it private because it's different from state, but I'm not necessarily advocating you finding your own pension company, starting investing in that. That's not what I'm saying. But investing definitely through your employer, but looking into maximizing that as well, because the more you put in, and there are lots of incentives in that. I mean, I'm not a pension specialist by any chance, and I'll make that very clear that the advice I'm giving right now is not a regulated advice, if you like. So by all means, seek professional advice. The financial advisors that can tell you more about pensions and how they work and how you can maximize it. But there are lots of incentives there, because with different employers, some employers will match what you're putting in. Sometimes there are certain areas where by putting in money, you're saving on your tax. But then there are limits to all that. So there's a lot when it comes to the issue of pensions. So you need to really learn more on that, and it's very important to have all that information. But the point I'm trying to make here is that private pension is what you pay through employer, but it comes from your salary. State pension is what comes through your NI, and it's determined by the years, qualifying years that the government has stated in their policies. If you go to Gov, what is it called? That is it hmrc.gov? You'll find all the information about state pension and how they do it and how they do the qualifying years, and you can even find your own information and see how many years you've qualified so far and what you can do to actually maximize that and things like that. So it's something that we really need to engage in and really try and find as much information. It's something that we're interested in, because in a way it is one of the avenues that you can create that passive income. And as they say, every little helps, isn't it? And look into other things. But that's just one thing. Investing in stocks and shares, you're saying that some people have more energy and they cannot do that. The thing about passive income is that you don't have to develop the, what's the word? You're not creating the what's the word you're using, Rennie, before? The system. Basically, you're making the most of the systems that are already there. And that's why it's called passive investment. Basically, when you're investing in stocks and shares, say if you're investing in things like indices, for instance, or mutual funds or things like that, there are instruments that have already been created. There are systems that have already been created. And some of them can even guarantee certain rates of return. Or if you look at the history, you can see what their track record, what have been their returns for the last 5 years, 10 years even, and see what sort of returns they've been making over that time. So all you need to do, basically, once you've done your research and you've got advice and you start investing there, basically you just automate that, and money comes off your paycheck every month. It may be £50, it may be £20, maybe £100, depending on what you can afford. And it just goes towards that pot the same way that it goes towards your pension. So it's not something that you have to work out. It's not like you're starting a business and you have to really think it through. So there are lots of these things, but you really need to engage and think about them and make it a priority, really, if your interest is really to create the financial freedom that you want for your future. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think I'll chip in because I kind of started the fire a little bit.
Go for it.
I didn't say necessarily do not invest on pension. I just said I think that the problem is with a lot of us during our work life and when on our active years, we're so much relying on that pension, and we work to invest on that pension. And I think this is where attending such seminars and standing outside the main crowd, this is where it helps. I mean, this is where we come to learn in knowledge and information of how can we stay away from the normal? How can we do things that others are not doing in order to achieve things that others will not achieve? And this is where we still say, okay, fine, pension is a source of income, but how can I put myself in a position where I'm able to I'm able to get enough passive income that I can live on? My argument was, a majority of the people who depend on pension, you end up living a bit of a poor life, because the pension, as much as it's good, it does help, and it's a means of passive income. It doesn't necessarily sustain a life that most of us would want to live in our retirement age. And I mean, if we talk about retirement, that's another story, because they say retirement is your steps to death, so we should not be retiring. Well, a lot of people who retire, you live like about 10, 11 years, 15 max, and you're gone. I mean, my dad was among them. He didn't live long after retirement, because the thing is, what keeps us alive is you want to always be waking up to something, you know. And that's where when I was talking to Monica, I mean, we have talent, we have something. I mean, I mean, a lot of us say we can cook, for instance. I mean, we might talk about that when we talk about things like investments and business and blah, blah, blah. But if you can cook, you could easily start a delivery takeaway from your house. That is something you could be looking forward to. I mean, you know, small things, small investments that can help us be able to live the life we want. Say, for instance, you say, oh, I want to go on holiday to the Maldives. You know, if you are relying on a pension which comes about £60 a week, that will not take you there. You know, so, but then again, like Charles said, he's not a professional on things like pension and stuff like that. The HMRC will advise us on that, but the reason we're here is mostly to say like, okay, fine, how can I be able to learn how to know more about finances, to know more about cash flow, and once we have that knowledge, is how do I take the first step into my financial freedom? You know, at least we've got a few tools today, so we sit back and then we meditate on those tools and we realize, okay, fine. As much as I know, pension is a bit of that, because I mean, there's a guy, I think he broke it well. He said, when you look at in the Bible in the beginning, like in the Garden of Eden, it had 4 rivers coming into the Garden of Eden. So in today's world, they call it multiple streams of income. So basically you're looking, if you had 4, you're looking, okay, fine. I've got pension coming from one hand. I've got maybe rent coming from another hand. I've got maybe a small cafe business on another hand and another. So you got like at least 4. So you're having about 4 streams of income to survive, such that if one dries up, you know, the other one will still be dripping in, and you can be able to sort of, you know, live the life you want to live, because that's what we all want. Yeah, that's sort of like short and basic.
Thank you so much, Rennie. We're running out of time. I'll invite one more contribution, and then we'll wind up for today and pick this up for the next session. Who wants to be our last contributor? Wow, very quiet. Hello.
I'll just say one thing, Stephen. Oh, sorry, Charles.
Hang on, Tom. Hang on, Tom. Monica. Hello.
You hear me?
No, well, I'm struggling to hear. I don't know what the others.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, a little bit better now. Yes.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
I think it's network. Maybe let me change the position. Maybe there are a lot of noise, background noise.
Yeah, I'm struggling to hear you.
That? I keep on turning around. Still, you can't hear me.
Yeah, we're struggling for a bit. We're struggling to do that. Hang on, Monica. Let's
okay, that's fine, Benny. If you're struggling, which means let me move a bit. If you can hear me, maybe.
Yeah, try to move a bit, and we'll allow Tommy to speak first.
Okay, no problem. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, and then you'll come back after Tommy. Let's allow Tommy to speak, and then we'll try again.
Thanks, Charles. Just something very briefly. There's another great session again, a great topic, and this has been really interesting conversation across the board. And I was just wanted to say, you know, I'm very happy that because I'm not particularly young, but I'm not particularly old. So I'm in my mid 30s. So I'm just happy that it's not too late for us, you know, to make a bit of change and a bit of money, you know. So there's hope for us all.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. There is hope for us all, whether we're 20, 15, or 30, 70, it doesn't matter. There is always hope for us all. And like I said before, it's not an all or nothing thing here. It's about looking at these tools, the things that the ideas that we share, and see how we can incorporate that in your financial journey to make a difference. Because the applications are endless. And once you get these principles right and kind of understand the differences, it will do you a bundle of good. Steve had something to say. If I allow Steve to come in, and then we'll try Monica again.
Well, yes. Before we finish, well, I would like to thank you, Charles, for an amazing presentation. It's really, really good. And then thank you for everyone. And what I'm saying is actually, well, it's really important for us as the cross-ethnic minority. But I don't like that, but that's what it is. It is to have time like this, you know, to kind of share and learn, you know, amongst ourselves. You know, I understand things are hard and possibly we spend too much time, you know, looking for this money, you understand? And we don't have enough time to kind of learn, because as Charlie explained, it's not about really just getting the money, but it's about also managing money and looking what we can do with the money and what money can do for us and all this kind of thing. So and I'm pretty sure if you stop somebody amongst us and ask them a question about the money, most thing they're gonna say is, you know, get in the money. How I can get an extra job? I can get an extra income. And that's all we have. But we, you know, don't take enough time to kind of plan, okay, you know, after this, after that, which is well, I can understand, because what we got possibly is not enough. We need to kind of, you know, make things go. But sessions like this, you know, we also got time to stop and pause and say, okay, get. If I get, what do I do? If I don't get, then what happens? You know, so collaboratively together like this, we can, you know, kind of ponder. I'm going to say today, Charles, amazing. It's amazing, very, very, very profound, you know, kind of discussion that we've had, to be honest. You know, understanding the difference. You know, at times it's not about getting, you know, good example, say Mike Tyson. He had all this money. Where did he go? So it's not about just getting, but again, after I get, what do I do with it? You know, so it's really some key small questions that if you get the answers, they may possibly even help us to get, you know, what we are looking for. So thank you and have a nice time. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. That was powerful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's try Monica one last time and then we'll wind this up. Monica, can you try again?
Hello, you can hear me?
It's still difficult.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
no.
We can, but it's very I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like
okay, that's fine then. I just wanted to say thank you. Yeah, thank you. Breaking. Yeah, it's fine. Nothing new. I just wanted to say I understood Rennie. No problem.
Okay,
yeah, it was good.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for taking part in the discussion. It was a very thoughtful discussion. There were lots of important points raised, lots of challenges. It's really good. That's how I like it. We can have an interactive discussion and really discuss how we can really challenge ourselves to make the most of our resources, of our finances, of our money, and of our knowledge as well. Because when we share, we're challenging one another to think differently, because that is very important. If we keep thinking exactly, if we have the same way of thinking, then it won't change our circumstances. We need to start thinking differently, and that's the point of these seminars. If we can achieve to challenge ourselves to think differently, to start asking different questions, to start looking at places we usually don't look. If someone today, at the end of this conversation, will go on the website and start looking at pensions and say, let me know more about pensions, then it's job well done. If someone's going to start looking at passive income, let me see what is it that I can do, then that will be job well done for us. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you again in 2 weeks' time. Like I said before, we'll be talking about the road to financial freedom. So we'll be talking about all the financial instruments and different things that you could do. We'll be talking about saving, we'll be talking about investing, we'll be talking about budgeting, we'll be talking about spending, we'll be talking about debt management and lots of other things. But like I said before, the main focus of the conversation when it comes to financial freedom is not going to be so much on business. Not to say that business is not important. Business is very important, and maybe we'll devour another time to sit down and talk about how can we start a new business? How can we, like Rennie here gave a really good suggestion. What stops you from selling food, and delivering it from your house? Probably we need another session and talk about those kind of things. What is it that we can do as in starting these new systems of business, that we can do simple systems, but they can generate revenue and income for us? But that's probably a subject for another time, because the conversation here is not so much how you make the money. Is right now that you have the money, how do you make that money last? How do you make that money work for you? How do you make that money secure your future, if you like? And that's what financial freedom is all about. So until next time, I will see you later. Thank you for your time, and God bless you.